Hello everyone! In this video, we will be showing you the basic rules for SCA Heavy Combat. In this section, we will be introducing SCA Combat Safety Rules and Etiquette. We will begin with the target areas. The effective target areas can be divided into three parts: head area, body area, arms area. The head area includes the head and neck. During combat, the head area is the major target. If any part of the head gets hit, the fighter is out of the game. The arm area includes upper arms and lower arms, as well as the elbow. According to SCA rules, 1 inch 2 centimeters above the wrist is the target area. After the arm area gets hit, the arm that was hit will need to set down the weapon and be put behind the back. The other arm will be holding the weapon to continue. With the same idea, if the arm that holds the shield was hit, then that arm must put down the shield. The arm with the weapon will remain in combat. Attention! Before continue the combat with single hand, the hand behind the back must have a hilt or hand protection to prevent injury caused by the attack from the behind. If the fighter uses a long sword or two-handed weapon, the fighter must put away the weapon and use the other arm holding a one-handed weapon to continue. If both arms get hit, the fighter is out of the game. According to the SCA guidelines, the body area includes breast area, waist area, hip area, upper leg area. These are the major parts of the body area. 1 inch 2 centimeters above the knee are hittable area. The body area requires 2 hits. If any legal part of the body area gets hit, then the fighter will be in injured mode. The fighter who received valid hit needs to kneel on the ground to continue combat. After kneel down, when any legal area other than the arm areas get hit, the fighter is out of the game. Next is the safety notice for combat. The body parts also include 2 sections: the non-hittable areas and non-suggest hitting areas. The non-hittable area includes lower legs and feet. This area is a highly dangerous area. Hitting this area can easily cause fracture, so hitting here during combat is forbidden. The non-suggest hitting areas includes neck, elbow and knee, wrist, private part. These areas are mixed with legal areas, so it is hard not to hit them by accident. Therefore, these are areas not suggested to attack, so fighters cannot have the intention to attack these areas to prevent any accident or serious injury. During the combat, the following actions are forbidden: no thrusting tip attack, attack with sword hit, attack with sword pommel, attack with sword guard, use shield to attack, use shield to strike, attack with bare hands, randomly throwing weapons, kicking the opponents, attack forbidden hit area, attack non-suggest hit area, insult, having bodily contact, or even violence and conflicts. The combatants must follow the safety rules. Anyone with hostile attempts or breaks safety rules several times will be recorded in the blacklist and will be forbidden to attend any SCA events in SCA around the world. In the extra notice, the first notice is the injured mode. When one fighter is in the mode, this fighter needs to kneel on the ground and remain in one place. Moving around with the knees during combat is not allowed. Opponents are not allowed to walk around the fighter during combat. The attack must be made from the front. Pushing down opponents is not allowed. Second notice is the process after getting hit. During common one-on-one combat, the fighter who got hit needs to lay on the ground. When the marshal is checking, by laying on the ground, the hand that is holding the sword must be put under the head. The shield needs to cover the upper body and cover the neck. Curl up both legs. Try get legs covered by shield as much as possible. If the fighter uses a two-handed weapon, one hand must put under the head. The long weapon needs to lay on the body horizontally. Also, try to cover the neck. This practice is a preparation for battles to prevent injury caused by stepping after the fall to the ground. The third notice is the judgment for hit. Each hit needs to contain enough strength. You can judge if the hit is valid by the marshals or by yourself. Any hit without strength, light hit, weapon scratch, light touch, and other similar actions will be counted as negative, and the combat will continue. The fighters can also judge the hit themselves. If the fighter thinks the hit is not strong enough, then the fighter needs to shake the head. Let the marshal and the opponent know. The combat will continue. The fourth notice is the language used during combat. Language after a hit is the word that fighters say after they get hit. To tell the opponent and the marshal the hit is positive. After getting hit, the fighter needs to yell out, "How?" or "Good." Then the combat is finished. For safety reasons, actions like these are not allowed. Left without letting others aware. Panic after getting hit. The second one is the language for the time when an accident or anything happens. If the armor falls apart or the fighter is not feeling well, then the fighter or marshal needs to yell out, "Ting!" or "Hold!" Also, when fighters fall on the ground or prevent any dangerous actions during multi-combat, this part is strongly recommended to be memorized. Also, try to cover the neck. It is very important. These actions are not allowed. Yelled out misleading words. Panic without knowing what to do in sudden situation. After you hear "Ting" or "Hold," everyone must stop what they are doing, especially during the multi-combat or battles. Everyone also needs to yell out "Ting" or "Hold" to help out and make sure everyone on the field can hear it, trying the best to prevent anything dangerous from happening. The last one is the basic etiquette. During one-on-one combat or tournaments, the fighters must follow the marshal's words before starting. Before the combat, the fighters need to double-check their armor and weapons. If there is any part that needs to be fixed or is not ready, then the fighter must tell the marshals. After the checking, we have the honors. Salute to the lords. Salute to the person you are fighting for. Salute to the opponents. After marshal, one more check. Then the combat will start after the marshal says, "Lay on." After the combat, the fighters will hug each other. Then the whole process will be finished. Hello everyone! In this section, we will be demonstrating the weapon rules of SCA style combat. First, we will start with choosing weapons for the SCA. The most commonly used weapons in China are nylon weapons, steel weapons, soft material weapons, foam weapons, kendo swords, cold steel brand weapons, and so, according to the SCA Marshal's handbook, none of these weapons can be used during SCA combat because of the consideration of the safety of the helmet and face mask, the requirement of weapon hardness, and the safety risks created by broken weapons. For these reasons above, the weapons above cannot pass SCA inspection. Proper SCA weapons are mainly made of rattan. They can be used in SCA combat after they have been properly constructed. The thickness of a rattan weapon needs to be at least 3.2 centimeters or 1 inch. All of the weapons that are used in SCA combat need to be equal to or larger than this requirement. Next, we are going to discuss the materials of SCA weapons. Here are several different kinds of sword hilts: traditional bar grill hilt, steel plate hilt, plastic sword hilt, ice falcon sword hilt. Among the variety of hilts, the ones previously mentioned are commonly used in the SCA. Rattan can be either skinned or unskinned. This time, we will use the skinned rattan. Let's begin the making of the one-handed sword. First, we will put rattan through the hilt, making sure that the end of rattan matches up with the bottom of the hilt. Then, we are going to use electric tape or duct tape to secure the rattan to the hilt. After double-checking for stability, next we will add the thrusting tip. The common materials for thrusting tips are hard EVA foam or camping mat. Sponge warmth foam bubble foam cannot be used to make the thrusting tip. Make sure the thrusting tip is around 2 centimeters or 0.75 inch thickness. After finishing the thrusting tip, we will choose one color of duct tape to mark it out. If the sword does not need a thrusting tip, then there's no need to mark it. With no thrusting tip, it cannot be used to thrust during combat. After the marking, we will choose a different color of duct tape to mark out the sword. Then, we choose the same color of sword tip to mark out the blades. blade edges need to be at the front and back of the sword. This is determined by the front and back of the basket hilt. Match the edges with these directions. Finally, find a long cord and tie it on the handle inside the hilt. The purpose of the cord is to keep the sword on the hand and prevent the sword from flying out of the hand and harming anyone. Two-handed weapons are produced with the same process. The thickness of the sword guard needs to be larger than 2.5 centimeters. The long weapon is also produced with the same process. If the weapon needs to thrust during combat, then a thrusting tip is required on both ends. The special head for a long weapon can be made from rubber foam EVA, sponge, normal EVA, hard rubber, and wood. Cannot be used for the weapon head. The weapon head can be secured with superglue and hot glue sticks, along with electrical tape and duct tape. For safety reasons, screws, nails, and other metals and sharp tools cannot be used to secure the weapon head. For the long weapon, only the part that is marked with an edge can be used to attack. The part that has no blade cannot be used. Long weapons can only have edges on one end. It cannot have blades on both ends. Strapped shields require handguards to protect from injury and broken fingers. If there is no hilt guard, strengthened hockey gloves and gauntlets are required. Lifting shields are required to be used with half-covered hand protections. SCA shields have a wide variety of materials and shapes. Aluminum, steel, aircraft aluminum are the most ideal options for shields. Hardened plastic are the other option you can choose, but it will require strengthened before use in combat. Nylon board is also usable. It will require the same strengthening process. You may also use a wooden shield. However, make sure the wood is strong enough when you choose the material. The recommendation for the shield size is no longer than 100 centimeters by 80 centimeters. The shield cannot have sharp edges after it is finished. All the edges must be rounded off and sanded to prevent the shield from causing injury. The entire shield must be padded on its edges. Metal shields can have rubber edging. Thicker shields can use plastic or rubber water tubing. Edging needs to be strong and stable on the shields. Hello everyone. Now, we will introduce the basic rules for SCA protections according to the SCA Marshal's Handbook. The required SCA protections are helmet, gorget, waist, elbows, knees, sports cup, hand protections. Now, let's begin with each of the required protections. The helmet selection needs to adhere to safety guidelines. Kendo helmet, fencing helmet, motorcycle helmet, police helmet cannot be used for SCA combat. When choosing a helmet, it must be made of steel. The most common helmet materials are mild steel and stainless steel. The suggested mild steel thickness is above 2 millimeters. The suggested stainless steel thickness is above 1.8 millimeters. The helmet is required to fully protect both sides and the back of the head. A helmet also must have face protection. At the same time, the helmet also requires protection of the front and the back of the upper neck. The size of the helmets are usually suggested to be bigger. All the helmet must be padded. The padding for a helmet may be made from camping mat or warmth foam, and at least needs to be 2 centimeters thick for the safety and prevent concussions. helmet lining, gambeson hats are not allowed to replace foam padding. The helmet must provide enough space in the front for the head when worn, to make sure there is enough distance from the nose to the bar grills. Also, try to cover the neck. Helmets also require a method of retention to make sure that the helmet can be secured on the head. The length of the helmet eye holes or between bar grills cannot be larger than 3 centimeters. Also, make sure the tip of the nose does not touch the helmet front or bar grill. The gorget is meant to protect the entire neck. It covers the part of the neck which helmets are not able to cover. The most common materials for gorgets are metal plates on leather. Thick leather alone is also used. The gorget must cover the entire neck for safety reasons. The neck cannot be exposed. The waist protection is mainly intended to protect the weak point on both sides of the waist and the back of the spine. Also, try to cover the neck, not necessarily including the chest. The chest area is not required but is still suggested. There is a variety on choice material for waist protection: steel, aluminum, nylon, hardened plastic, hardened leather, and so. The recommended thickness for steel is at least 1.5 millimeters. The recommended thickness for aluminum is at least 1.8 millimeters. The thickness for other materials need to be greater. Materials cannot be thin when using leather. Thick, real cowhide should be chosen instead. Elbows and knees are other 2 required areas. The forearms and legs are not required to be protected, but it is recommended. For safety reasons, the recommended material is metal. Materials like plastic or nylon should be thicker. Leather and other soft materials are not allowed. The knee and elbow parts need to be extended. They need to be long enough to protect the inner parts of the knee and elbow. Roman arms, Ming Dynasty arms, need to add extra protection before use. Hand protection can be divided into 2 kinds. The first kind is half-covered. Half-covered protection is normally used for one-handed swords, to cover the wrist part that cannot be protected by the sword hit, and prevent dislocation of the hands and arms after one gets hit. The second kind is fully covered. They are mainly used for long swords and 2-handed weapons, including one-handed weapons without a sword hit. The most common fully covered hand protection is gauntlets. For safety reasons, split fingers cannot be used for combat. It has to be full plates. When there are no gauntlets, strengthened hockey gloves can also be used as fully covered protection. Cups are one of the most important parts of all protectors. Safety first. Sports cups, Taekwondo cups, and other hardened cups are usable for the SCA. Soft cups cannot be used for combat. All male fighters must wear a cup during combat. It is suggested for female fighters but not required. Marshals play a big role in the SCA, so in this section we will be talking about the rules and things marshals need to know. First is the requirement for marshals' clothing. Traditionally, the SCA marshals are equipped with marshal stick, wearing SCA black tunic with yellow swords. If the marshal has no tunic, then the marshal needs to carry the marshal's logo, and make sure the logo is visible on both front and back, to make sure surrounding people know who the marshal is. During multi-combat or battle, For safety, helmet or head protection is suggested for marshals. Next is the first part of the marshal's duty. The first duty is weapon checking. Check material of the weapon and measure the weapon's thickness. Weapons that do not match SCA requirements cannot be used. Weapons that are too thin, too hard, or too soft contain dangerous materials non-SCA weapons. Or weapons in poor conditions cannot pass the inspection. The second stage is to inspect fighters' armor. First, the marshal needs to ask fighters to take off their helmets. Then, check the gauge of the helmet. Check the width of eye hole and bar grills. Check the padding inside the helmet. Then, ask the fighter to put on the helmet. After strapping and securing the helmet, put the hand on the helmet face and ask the fighter to push forward with their head. Make sure the helmet front does not touch the tip of the nose. At the same time, the helmet should not shake too much. Then, the helmet can pass. Next, the marshal needs to check the gorget to make sure there is no part of the neck that is exposed. Then comes the checking of the rest of the required protection. For the cup, marshals can only ask, but not check for themselves. If all the required protection is okay, then the armor can pass inspection. The third is the combat testing. After inspection, the fighter needs to find an authorized fighter for the fighting test. To test the ability of the fighter's attack and defense. If the fighter has no ability to defend themselves or fight safely, or can get injured easily, the marshal cannot approve the test. The last is the lay-down check. To test the fighter's ability to self-protect. Check if the fighter can place the hand shield weapon properly. To see if the fighter has the ability to protect him or herself. The other duty for a marshal is to supervise the combat. Before the one-on-one combat, marshals need to ask the fighters to wait. Then, ask the fighters to double-check weapon and armor. Asking the fighters if they are ready. After the preparation, the marshals need to yell out, "Kai Shi," or "Lay on." During the combat, marshals need to make sure the fighters do not come out on field, and at the same time watch over the combat. For any fighters' hostile attempts, if an accident happens, stop the combat immediately. Above are the SCA all basic rules. This is the end of this video. Thank you for watching.
区域被击中后，被击中的胳膊需要放下武器。
怎么回事？带分上通告了？怎么回事？带分上通告了？你这凭着10秒5、6。
好，可以慢动作一起加快。
主要是声音里面，主要听着声音。哎，真的好，你不要真打他，你别打他，我们意识一下，你别打他。 接不住。
浑水摸鱼你。
啊。
你这个镜头怎么解锁啊？镜头怎么解锁？镜头怎么解锁？
就按照那个上面那个圆的地方，然后1、2、3
这样的，这样整个人这样，哎，这太高了，太高了，太高了，把手往前朝前，哎，对，差不多，哎，对，就这样。好漂亮，漂亮！再来一个，再来一个，再来一个，老刘，再来一个，再来一个中指。哎，你该。操，老刘屌爆了，好了。
来看这儿，看这儿，看这儿，看这儿，来来来来来来来来，
漂亮漂亮漂亮。
行。
这个是吧？没好。哎我操！我操！我想说什么？啊！然后开始啊，那个1、2、3。操！哎，我操！这是有点深了，我所以要。
真的，还往前站一点，往前站一点。哎，好，老刘头没了。
说话这么瘆人呢？再加。准备好了吗？